It is Labor Day currently, and I'm filming this on my last free day before I have to go back to work. First of all, apologies for my appearance. I just washed my hair, and it takes forever to dry, even with a blow dryer. So I did give up like halfway through. So if it looks a little tangled and unruly, that is why. So today I'm going to give you an update on my reading, and also I do have a book haul today to mark the fall season. We finally have returned with a book haul. So first off, I'll update you. So I was in the middle of A Deadly Education, and I am happy to tell you that I have not only finished that book, but I have also finished the sequel. So yeah, I finished the first book and I finished the sequel as well. So I have to update you on that. Before I do, I also have kind of a funny story. I had just gotten rid of a lot of duplicates that I owned, including a few of my copies of A Deadly Education, and I was so proud of myself. I was like cutting down on duplicates, making space on my shelves, being smart with my financial decisions. And then I had my first book mail in like a good couple weeks, and I was excited. I was like, I wonder what this is. Well, I go to open it. I unbox it. And what is it? It is, you probably can't read that. I think it's probably backwards, but it is another copy of the Scholomance series, A Deadly Education, The Last Graduate, and The Golden Enclaves. I literally got rid of a set of these and was so proud of myself. And then I forgot that my past self had ordered the Fairy Loot editions. So when I tell you my sister looked at me with such shame, it's really funny, but also a little humbling. So Fairy Loot, you could not have had better or worse, timing to deliver these to me. So I will be using these copies to hold up, and of course I'll show you like the specialness of whatever these editions are, the Fairy Loot editions. This is A Deadly Education. The thing is, I do really like these covers. These the covers that Fairy Loot chose. They are very pretty. So and these are the sprayed edges, which are actually really stunning. Like, it's just like some like magical books from the library in this world. Some spell books. These are like very vibrant, very like clean sprayed pages. Some of like the most clean I've seen from Fairy Loot, so yeah, I was really impressed by these. And then this is the back. And of course it says, I decided that Orion needed to die, after the second time he saved my life. And it does have in-paper art, which is really pretty as well. So first is a letter from the author. But here is art of the characters. So you see one of the monsters coming out from the library, and then we have Galadriel and Orion. Here is the cover. I actually haven't looked at this yet. Here is the back. So pretty. But anyways, I did finish this book and I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. I really loved Galadriel and Orion. I think their dynamic was what really kept me turning the pages, but the side characters were really fun, like the students that Galadriel gets to know. The story is basically about Elle, our main character, and she's kind of a self-imposed loner. She has a lot of like dark magic that she tries to repress because using it will like kill everyone around her, and despite what she might want you to think, she's not a bad person. And it's basically just her forming friendships, and it's very wholesome, and she's very dry humored, which is entertaining. I will say this book has a very distinct style, like a tone, I guess I'll say. It is an adult fantasy, but it's not maybe as serious in tone as you might think going in. Serious things do happen, but it's definitely not like grimdark fantasy or anything like that. But I did really enjoy this first book. I think I gave it 4 stars. Oh, and here's the tops. Forgot to show that. And then we have the second book, The Last Graduate. Also has a really pretty cover. I really like how like bookish these editions are. Here are these pages. They're also books. They are slightly different from the other ones, but they sort of like continue on. Maybe I'll show them all together at the end. The Last Graduate. This is kind of fun. It's called Lesson 2 of the Scholomance. So I did finish this book, and I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars. I didn't like it as much as the first book. There were scenes in the first book where the author would just kind of tell you something about the school or like how magic works, and like throughout the first book she would just sometimes tell you something new, and it made sense to me because it was the first book, you know, the world is being set up. But I did find that in the second book she continued to do that. Like we would get like a couple pages of just like world building info dumps. And I started to find those kind of boring and like irritating. So I would start to skim read them a bit. One of my main gripes is that the world, as interesting as a concept as it is, I felt like sometimes the author was just like adding things as she thought of it. Like whatever she wanted to happen in the plot, she would just like have a page and be like, oh, by the way, this is how this works, and this spell does that, and so I would say like the stakes, as much as I cared about the characters, I was never really truly worried for them, because like in any scene, like there could be some spell that we didn't know about that one of them suddenly uses, and it kind of reminds me of like when you have magic in a world, they say there has to be a cost, or else like magic can just solve everything. And I feel like this world doesn't do the best of like keeping that balance. So sometimes there would just be like scenes of the students in the school, and maybe like a room was dangerous or something, but I was never truly concerned, because I was like, well, Galadriel's really powerful, and like sure, she can't use her powers too much, but I'm sure there's some spell that someone can come up with and everything will be fine. Like, I just feel like as a reader, I didn't know all of the like edges of the world, so like I didn't know all the rules, and it felt like a rule could be added at any time, which kind of made things drag a bit during some parts. Another sort of con I would say about this book is that, well, it was a con for me, is that it felt like a finale book almost to me. Like, I thought the plot from book 1 to book 2 progressed almost too quickly. Like, it had like end game feels in this book, and I was like, but we have a whole other book to go. And I would have liked to like have the characters work for it a little bit more. I feel like things just kind of progressed too fast to be believable, at least for me. But as much as I am criticizing this book, I did still, I love Galadriel, our main character, and I like her and Orion's like relationship. I think it's really funny. And I'm just curious to see where it ends. So I am still excited for the third book. I just thought the sequel was not as good as it could have been. And I really hope some of like the info dumpy scenes and like the fluff is kind of trimmed out of the third book. So to show you, actually I'll just take the cover off now. Oh, and the quote on the back of this dust jacket says, if we could only destroy the whole place, we could save ourselves from ever having been in here. Here being the Scholomance, the school. I really love this cover, this color. This dark green is one of my favorite colors, so. And this is the back. And the character art looks like this. So I believe this is Galadriel's two friends. It's Lou and Adia, I think is her name. I really do like her friends. I don't think they're the most fleshed out, but I do care about them. So. Those were the first two books that I have read, and now I'm on to start the Golden Enclaves, which is the third book. I have not started this book yet. It's been sitting on my nightstand, but I will soon. And again, considering how much I thought like the second book had like an ending, not really an ending feel, but like how fast the plot progressed, I'm very curious to see like what all this will contain. So hopefully this like sticks the landing. And if you can tell, there's like a little tail of a monster heading back into the stacks. These are the sprayed pages. Again, stunning, so crisp. And the back says, I imagine it's always easier to do something monstrous if you can convince yourself you aren't going to up to the last minute until you do. So here is the naked hardcover. I know I said the second book, the green cover, was my favorite, but this is also really pretty, so. Is that a good noise? I can't tell. Here is the back. And then here is the in paper art. It's just our Queen Galadriel. So as I said, I'll show you the pages together. Very pretty. But now on to the book haul. Well, the rest of the book haul, I guess. So the first book I have to show is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. You probably noticed that this is a paperback. I actually don't own a ton of paperbacks, but that's mostly because I prefer fantasy in hardcover, but I don't really care with other genres. And it is nice to have a paperback because they're just so like, let's see, floppy and nice to hold. So this is the author of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I think that's what it's called. which I do own that book. I have not read it yet. It is a mystery thriller, I believe, which I don't read a lot of, but the title of that book was just so intriguing. And I think the premise was interesting too. It's about like a group of college friends. Something happens to one of them. And this, again, is another title that really caught my eye. Midnight is the Darkest Hour. And I think this one, I saw this one on like a list on Twitter, like a thread. And someone was recommending books where the villain gets the girl. And I saw this on there and I was like, I've already been planning to buy it for a while, but I was like, a thriller? Like, what do you mean? So that was kind of enough for me to be like, wonder what happens in that book. So I think someone mentioned like that there's a supernatural aspect. Like, I don't know if it's like the undead or like a vampire or what, but I was very curious. You know, I'm a vampire person at heart. I always have been. I always will be. So very excited to get to this. I will probably want to read Ashley Winstead's first book first, since I already own it. And I generally prefer to read in like publication order a author's works. So, but that just like increases the excitement to get to this eventually. So, and I feel like this would be a good fall book, both her other book and this one. So maybe I'll just binge read these two on like a weekend or something. Very excited to get to this. So the next book is the Barnes & Noble exclusive paperback edition of Emily Wilde, Map of the Otherlands. I have, sadly, a few editions of this book, but see, the issue is I love Heather Fawcett. I read her first duology, Even the Darkest Stars, which I think is criminally underrated. I think you should read it as well as this series. I mean, I'm glad that the series is so popular, and I'm very excited to get to it, but her first duology is really good, and sorry for waving my finger at you, but her first duology is really good, and I think it should get more recognition, so. But this cover is so pretty, and I saw, like the first book, the paperback has deckled edges, and I am a sucker for deckled edges. I know they're kind of controversial. I feel like you either like them or you don't, but I love them. They give it like a rougher look, and I like the texture, so. I'm not sure what the special content of this one is, but since I own the first book with this in paperback with the deckled edges, I thought I would go ahead and bite the bullet and get this as well. So so yeah, 2 paperbacks, and unusual for me, but I'm not complaining. The next book is one that you've probably seen going around, but funny enough, it was also on that same list of books where like the girl gets with the villain, or you know, like the antagonist is like the love interest. And this book was on that list, and it's called The Phoenix King. Funny story, I did almost buy this at my local indie bookstore like a couple months ago, but I decided against it. But as soon as I saw it pop up on the list, I was like, okay, you know, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. So again, yeah, this is the Phoenix King. It is blurbed by Peter V. Brett, who wrote, I believe that's the author of The Last Unicorn. So, I mean, that speaks volumes. So, I do have high hopes for this. It's a bit of a chunky paperback. But again, I don't know too much about this plot. Obviously, there are phoenixes involved. I just know that there's like antagonistic love interest vibes. I can read you this little short blurb on the back. I don't think it'll give too much away. It just says, from a stunning new voice in fantasy comes an Indian-inspired, action-packed debut of fire magic and ancient prophecy, in which the fate of a kingdom rests in the hands of a princess desperate for power and an assassin with a dark secret. So that sounds pretty good. Excited. I have to say, it feels good to have a book haul after all this time. I say all this time, it's probably been like a month and a half. But and the last book I have in my book haul is one I've been anticipating for a while. I think this author is underrated, and it is Ryan Groudon, her new adult fantasy release called The Enchanted Lies of Celeste Artois. This is obviously set in historical France. It is a fantasy. It is blurbed by Laini Taylor, who I've read her books and I love them, so that only makes me more excited. This is a chunky paperback, but it also has the deckled edges, so another win for me. I don't know if that is a good noise or not, so let me know. Again, this is a bit of a chunky book. Oh, it's also blurbed on the back by Roshani Chokshi, another author I like, and Lyra Celine, who wrote A Feather So Black, which I know is a fairy loot book that I got not too long ago. So, but yeah, this is set in historical France. I don't exactly know the premise, except for I believe it follows a sorcerer. It says, in this lush and lyrical fantasy, Ryan Groudon transports readers to the hidden magical pockets of early 1900s Paris, a place of enchanted salons, fortune tellers who can change your stars, and doorways that can take you to the most unexpected places. Ryan Groudon wrote the Wolf by Wolf duology, which I think I've talked about before. I'm not totally sure. It follows a Jewish girl, in an alternate history who enters a race to kill Hitler. And she's able to skin shift, I think. I don't remember the terminology, but she can change her appearance to look like someone else. And I really enjoyed that duology. I think it was young adult, but it was entertaining, so I'm excited to read her new adult fantasy. And that is my book haul today, not including the new editions of the Scholomance series, which I'll have to get rid of some other ones to make up for their entry into the bookshelf. But thank you for watching. thank you for being willing to look over my wet hair that just refuses to dry. And I will see you in my next one. Hopefully by then I've finished the series, the Naomi Novik series, and I can give you a quick review of the series overall. And then maybe we'll have like an October or September, October like spooky book I can read next. So thank you, and I hope you have a good day or night wherever you are.